You're not witnessing the moment I just had, because we started recording a video and then my alarm went off, and then I had some discouraging ideas about what I wanted to do with a bowling pin and the corpse of Steve Jobs. So we were talking earlier, and it was such a great conversation. I wanted to get it, I wanted to record it, because I think a lot of us are thinking about these things and they could be relevant. So what we're talking about is human health. Now, one of the reasons we want to do regenerative agriculture, aside from the fact that it's a passion, it brings us closer to the land, brings us closer to nature and plants, and as animists, we value these things, is the health reasons. And so we were talking a little bit, and T was telling me about some stuff.
The start of the conversation.
Yeah, sorry.
Jay came across an article or a post on Instagram that was talking about the alarm bells that scientists and doctors are, ringing right now about how a lot of people are not having children. So, there's a couple reasons for that, and it is a big deal that we are not replacing ourselves. I don't think it's a big deal. I'm not replacing myself.
Right, I'm not replacing myself.
He's not replacing himself, and a lot of our friends are also not having children. But this is an issue, but this is choice. There's a lot of people who currently cannot conceive, and that is a different issue, and that's kind of the bigger issue, is not adults deciding that they don't want to reproduce for whatever their personal reasons are, but that a lot of that relates directly to their health and their lifestyle. A lot of people with PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, can't conceive or have a very difficult time conceiving, and then have very difficult and complicated pregnancies. And one of the easiest ways to manage PCOS is through diet and exercise. Diet is more important than exercise in this. A lot of people with PCOS are pre-diabetic or have just been diagnosed with diabetes, and that can be 100% managed with your food choices, not by using insulin. If you use insulin because you need to, obviously medication, we're on lots of medication, you got to do what you got to do. But in many, many instances, you can actually just 100% change your diet and not rely on medication for the most part. But especially women with PCOS, you cut out carbohydrates and sugars. You have a mainly meat-based diet with very low carbs, a lot of animal fat, no seed fat, or vegetable-based fats. And a lot of those changes to your diet will repair the damage to your reproductive system and allow you to conceive like someone with a fully healthy reproductive system. But one of the things we don't talk about, because we don't want to fat shame people, which I appreciate what body you have, is the body that you have. And sometimes you can't do anything about that. And sometimes you're put on medications that cause you to gain weight and they cause your body to not function properly. So nothing negative about that, but a lot of people who are overweight or severely underweight, which is the other kind of issue on the other end of this, lifestyle choices directly affect your reproductive health, both men and women. So the more foods that you eat that have a lot of hormones or pseudo hormones in them, the more it can affect your personal hormone levels. So things like soy, primarily, the body reacts to like estrogen. So lots of guys eating lots of soy have low testosterone because they have high estrogen. Not awesome for reproducing.
Which does tie into the fact that right now there's an epidemic amongst young men who don't have testosterone levels even appropriate for a man in their 70s through 90s.
Exactly.
A lot of them don't have testosterone appropriate for someone in their 90s. And you're not allowed to address this because that's somehow offensive or off. there's a certain point at which you're getting gaslit, and it's important for people to know this. We ran into an individual a few years ago who proudly wanted to explain to me how her son was standing next to her, was raised vegetarian, and he ate soy, and he's huge. And he was 6'2", no chin, nice titties. I'm sorry, but that, like, not to be crude, but you have breasts, but you're not really overweight. That's gynecomastia. That's because his body is functioning on estrogen. Estrogen can make you gigantic. It's not testosterone alone that causes growth. But so many people are like, I'm healthy the way I am. No, you shouldn't be shamed for being over. I've been overweight my entire life. It's a struggle for me. It's really hard because my body makes really good work of calories. It's good at holding calories. So in the event of a food apocalypse, I'll survive. My ancestors obviously did just fine. But we have abundance now. And most of our food is made to taste insanely good.
Right. We have really fucked with our bodies through all of this heavily processed foods and food science. So all these big companies that manufacture food, not grow food, different thing. So these companies that manufacture foods are manufacturing products that trigger your positive emotional receptors in your brain, like serotonin, and
dopamine, big dopamine release,
all of those things. So when you're eating those foods, like sugar is actually more addictive than heroin. And how much sugar is in our food? Like more sugar than you could possibly imagine, and even in things that it like doesn't belong in. I was looking at beef jerky the other day. And in a 5-ounce packet of meat jerky, which is one serving, there were 12 grams of sugar. That's like tablespoons of sugar in my meat that I don't want sugar in. But it does help preserve, so there is a scientific reason to add it to meat jerky. But the quantities that people are adding it to food these days are detrimental to our health and are causing us not to taste things properly because we're so heavily
reliant.
Like our brains are dependent on tasting very, 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 very sweet things. So even when it's supposed to be savory, we still need it to be sweet, and that is terrible.
Think about it like this: Native Americans, indigenous people here, when the Puritans came, the Puritans ate, and this is going to sound like a lot, but ready for this. The Puritans ate 15 pounds of sugar a year on average. The Native Americans, 1 pound.
And that doesn't mean like cane sugar. That means like honey and probably fruit and all those kind of, not necessarily processed sugar as we understand sugar to be.
So now if we look at, I think 10 years ago it was 24 pounds of sugar. And look, I don't want to be a jerk, but we were talking about this, I talk about this, like when I was in school, I was one of the heaviest kids in the school. I was, like, if you look at the yearbook photo, it's pretty obvious who the fat kid is. And first thing is that compared to nowadays, I'm not fat in those photos. Everybody else is just skinny, which is wild. And that's only the mid-90s. You go back through yearbooks, you're going to see this like leaner and leaner people. In the 70s, forget it, they made all of us look overweight in the 90s. Well, I've got people now, I see human beings that are bigger than any human being I went to school with. Like, they dwarf and I'm not fat shaming, I'm literally just pointing this out, and people are like, no, that's normal. I'm like, no, it isn't. No, it's not normal. It's not healthy, it's not good. I had it once explained to me in terms of bodybuilders. Like, bodybuilders you should think of as overweight, because the more massive they are, the more tissue their heart has to perfuse. And the heart can only do so much. So it doesn't matter if you've got an extra 80 pounds of muscle or an extra 80 pounds of fat. Your circulatory system has to deal with that. And people, instead of being told, like, you need to lose weight, they're being told, like, oh, we'll just change diets. You'll eat less bread or something. Like,
Right.
no, it's more than that.
It's a much bigger issue. And what people aren't understanding is that, like, our bodies are not designed and have not evolved over millions of years to hold that much extra body fat or that much extra body weight for longer than a season, and
Right.
the season being winter. So
Right.
our bodies are designed to put on fat cells to increase our fat content at the end of the harvest when we're eating the most fattening things. Those things are fruit and some vegetables, starchy vegetables like potatoes. Those are end of season. And then your body is taking all these things. It's being triggered with that sugar content to put on fat, because that is what we evolved to do, so that through the lean times during the winter, when you might not have food that lasts the whole season, that you might not have the meat to sustain your muscle tissue, you might not have just food in general, you might not be able to forage for anything for extended periods of time. Your body can go weeks without food. Can't go very long without water, but it can go literal weeks without food.
It can go more than a year.
Yeah.
The longest fast that we have on record was 384 days. And that person did not result in any negative. I'm not saying don't eat, but fasting is something that has actually been scientifically proven again and again to extend life and extend health. I've used it healing major surgeries. I've fasted instead of eating, and I've had better results.
And that during the winter time, we would be more naturally likely to fast because, you don't have any food to eat, so you're gonna not eat until you get some more food. But our bodies are only designed to have that extra weight for a short period of time so that we can use that fat, especially brown fat cells, which is like which you build up the top, is it the back of your neck?
Yeah,
and
back of your neck.
shoulders?
Wim Hof goes into this, and that's the fat you burn when you're trying to keep
cold.
yourself warm. And by the way, you guys burn more calories trying to keep warm than you do doing any exercise. You'll burn more fat. But, and the other thing too is that people don't understand your body, like, I gotta eat, I want to eat. Well, part of it's the sugar addiction, and I don't care how little you eat, it's sugar. A lot of things turn to sugar. Like, I eat keto and I eat nut flour. Well, if you eat almond flour, it's going to damage your eyes over time. And also, you're turning it into sugar. For those of you who've never done the test, you take a little bit of flour and you put it on a teaspoon and then hold a flame to it. What happens? Maybe the outside will turn brown. You take that same flour, don't do this inside, and you blow that over a candle, it'll explode. It's an actual concussive bang. It's that much, because you've got that much more caloric intake available because you ground it down, because you separated it from its shell and its husk. You end up with something that's very different, and it's not healthy, no matter what it says in the package. That's the other thing too, is people are like, well, I tried to eat keto, but I didn't lose weight. A lot of keto products are just labeled to be smaller portion sizes. They're not ketogenic.
There's definitely a few times that we have thought we were getting something that was low carb, but what they didn't tell you is that when we'll use it, because we like sweet treats, especially peanut butter cups. That is usually the thing that we can find that is a low carb item that we can kind of give ourselves an extra sweet treat with. But we found this brand that was supposed to be keto. And because we were hungry and we were not thinking, we ate it. And then
don't shop while you're hungry.
Don't do that. And then when we looked at the package later, we realized that, so it's a package with two peanut butter cups. So we got two packages, because normally a package of 2 peanut butter cups is 1 serving. That is a normal amount for a human being to eat. But the way that they had set this up was that each one was a serving, which is crappy. It also said that there was only 4 grams of carbohydrates per serving, which means there's 8 in the package, which is like eating a normal diet, low carb. It's not a keto thing. The other thing that they do is they call it keto, when there's, because a keto diet, for people that don't know, means you're eating less than 20 grams of carbohydrates in a day. Not any carbohydrates specifically, just all carbohydrates less than 20 grams, period, end of story. But what they don't tell you is that keto products often, per serving, have 20 grams of carbohydrates. Because technically, if that's the only carbohydrates you're eating, it's still keto.
So if you're hungry, one of the things that people don't talk about is that you're really eating properly. You want food that is nutrient dense and calorically poor. Like, our brains look for calories because that's a survival mechanism. But what you really need are nutrients. So like, if you're craving chocolate, it could be magnesium. If you're craving like potato chips, it could be salt. It's a complicated thing. But if you eat nutrient dense and calorically poor, you're not taking in the excess calorie, but you are taking in a volume of beneficial nutrients. A lot of people don't like this, but you got to compare, it's apples to apples, not apples to oranges. So like an egg doesn't have like 70 to 75 calories, like 3.5 grams of protein, but an egg is completely bioavailable. Almost 100% of an egg your body can use. When you start going down the list of other things, you end up with things that...
Pea protein.
Pea protein's crap.
It's like
30%, 40%.
It's a very, very low percentage of bioavailability. And often what they don't tell you with plant proteins is that in order for your body to use that protein, it needs something else.
That's why a lot of diets...
And those things are usually not included in the food that you're eating.
That's why a lot of diets, and I'm not picking on anybody, I think, honestly, if you're doing a vegan diet, you should be doing it for spiritual reasons, because for health reasons, it makes no sense. But if you want to do it, most vegans have to take a lot of supplements. And they find themselves getting sick a lot. They get hungry a lot.
They break lots of bones.
We've seen a lot of this. I tried it 25 years ago. I couldn't do it. After a month and a half, I was injured repeatedly. I was miserable. But with eating a diet that is realistically, it's heavily carnivore. It's almost completely carnivore. I don't eat that often. We eat once, maybe twice a day. We lose weight. We feel better. Our numbers improve.
And it's not really about the losing weight, although that is a consideration for both of us, because we both need to lose weight, because our bodies can't handle the weight that we have on them. But the number isn't really the important part. It's our health and our things like how our joints are feeling, how our heart is working, how our lungs are working. I'm a severe asthmatic. That's a really big deal to me. So it's more about our bodies functioning properly than it is about what the number on the scale is. And it is about how much excess body fat we have. We both have an extreme amount of body fat that is not healthy for us, because it's not the kind of body fat that your body finds easy to use. So it is a health issue for us. Major. It isn't a fashion, body shaming
it's a function
issue,
health thing.
Sort of.
Fashion and appearance comes like third or fourth.
Right.
But that is also an important role of this too. Human beings, I should be comfortable with myself. Look, I've said it, T's said it, we've talked about it. There are books you can go into where they've actually done studies. It's not the patriarchy, it's genetic drive that makes you look for certain attributes in a mate. That's why some people on Instagram have OnlyFans and millions of followers, and other people don't. And you can't compare the two, and people can be bothered by it, but this is literally the way it is. You are an organism. You reproduce sexually, so health and vitality and all this stuff play a role in this. So, unfortunately, yes, there are people out there that like heavier people. The vast majority of people don't. That's why those people aren't, it's men or it's women or it's the fashion industry. No, we're animals. The reason why a female moose looks for a moose with the largest rack, the whitest rack, the healthiest call, is because these are indicators of genetic health. Well, not being able to move properly or having to wrap your legs so they don't split because you're so huge is not an indicator of something good. And I have heard people say, like, well, we're like marine mammals. We're supposed to have a layer of fat. And it's like, you don't spend time in a 40-degree pool all day. You don't need that. And again, like, all the things that people are like, I don't like to eat this. Well, you got to get out of your comfort zone. You've been given food that's insanity. That it's not your fault necessarily. All of us grew up with this.
We were all raised on, you know,
junk,
a ton of flour, a ton of sugar, a ton of
bread,
chemicals, bread and everything, pasta and everything.
Yeah, everything.
You know, meat is expensive. Not a lot of meat in the diet because you can't afford it. Especially, we both came from pretty big families, so like mine not as big as his, but you know, for a standard American family, I have 3 siblings. My parents both came from big families, and you know, our parents couldn't necessarily afford to eat meat every night of the week,
right,
which is totally legitimate.
Understandable.
Like, you gotta feed what you can feed, but like, you know, 2 generations ago, you would grow all your own meat, or at least some of it. You would have chickens in your backyard. You would eat their eggs. You would eat the chickens. You might have sheep. You might have a cow or 2. Like, that was not abnormal in our grandparents' or great-grandparents' era. And in 2-3 generations, we have totally messed that up. And of course you can't afford meat, especially when you want to eat good quality meat, because
most of the stuff that's out there is terrible.
You know, this industrial farming complex, which has run all small, you know, farmers out of business in a short period of time. And now we're really just trying to build that back up to repair the damage those industries have done to our food systems, to our biodiversity, to the land, the soil, our environment, all of that kind of stuff. But this is the important things that we need to have in our body is actually the stuff that is the same. You know, the same content. You're clear on my side.
Not clear over here yet.
Yep.
And that's just it. Like, not only is not only is that part of it, but on top of this is just the layers of processing. Mm-hmm. You don't recognize your food. People like, I want my food to be like. I remember Steven Ranella was once asked what's the weirdest thing he's ever eaten, because he eats a lot of weird shit, and he said a Cool Ranch Dorito. It doesn't taste like anything else on earth. And people laugh at that. I'm like, no, really, like. But
it's weird. And it's all chemicals.
Right. When did you ever eat mashed potatoes? I don't mean like your mom put 10 tons of crap in it. Like, when was the last time you actually ate mashed potatoes and went, these are addictive, I can't stop eating them? Not if they didn't have butter and salt on them, right? Like, you do need certain things, and your body's looking for those things, and replacing it with stuff that doesn't work doesn't help. Last thing I'll say on it is that when we deal with we got pigs right now. We're running pigs up in New Hampshire, and the only use that anybody ever had for skim milk prior to the 80s was to fatten pigs. Let me say it again. Skim milk is used to fatten pigs.
Skim milk is a waste product when you make cream. So you get cream and you get skim milk. And if you were a farmer and you had a dairy cow, a family dairy cow, or you had a larger dairy operation, and you were, you know, doing cream for your customers, the excess skim milk would be fed to animals, specifically pigs, to make them bigger quicker. So, like, that's just pure sugar.
You know what gets me?
Sugar.
Is like when you try to explain to people, like, when you take a goose and you want to make foie gras, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, you don't give them fat, you give them grains. Mm-hmm. What have we been given for 40 years? The food pyramid. Grains.
What is it, like
sugar,
10 servings a
grains.
day?
And as far as fat, you guys are given seed oil, it's crap. Mm-hmm. Nut oil, it's crap.
Causes lots of cancer.
Canola oil's absolute garbage.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't want to eat, bacon because I don't want to die. The Eskimos live on a diet of fat.
Who did I hear say that the other day? And I was
one of the clients.
No. animal fats don't cause cardiovascular issues.
Animal fats don't make you
period.
fat. Animal fats don't make you fat.
And they actually, you need animal fat for your brain to function properly.
Right.
So all those vegans out there that are really confused and have foggy brain and are angry all the time, it's because their brain is not working properly anymore, because they need, like scientifically proven, you need animal fat for your brain to work at 100%.
Now, I'll say this right now. Like, if I drop dead next year, it's not because of the diet. It's because I spent 15 years drinking a half a gallon of vodka a night to go to bed because I had undiagnosed sleep apnea. Kids, the medical industry will kill you. But just a real quick, I want you to think about 3 types of animals, okay? Herbivores, omnivores, and carnivores, okay? Think of an herbivore. Elephants, hippos, cows, deer. Do any of these animals look lean to you? Huge gut, big gut. That's a herbivore. So if I saw a meme the other day that hippos are proof that eating lettuce and going for walks doesn't actually make you thin, because it doesn't. Omnivores, okay? Raccoons, bears, okay? Now think of a bear. Bear comes out of its den in spring, all right? It's very lean, and it goes and eats grass, and it's eat the Cambrian layer of trees. That's great. And then it eats what? It eats what available protein it can get. It eats a lot of insects, tons of insects. Mm-hmm. So I'm all for that. Like, we should be eating more insects. We should be eating more protein. Bears eat a lot of meat. They eat a lot of roadkill. When they want to get fat, what do they eat?
Berries.
That's it.
The best kind of bear meat is blueberry meat.
Mm-hmm. Like the Kodiak bears, the biggest bear on the planet as far as weight. But you look at a Kodiak bear, in the fall they eat salmon, and then they go eat berries. A polar bear is a very long, lean bear. They're true carnivores. Look at the shape of the polar bear. They're not round. They don't eat berries. Those things eat seals. And they eat fat in chunks that the other bear would never touch. Mm-hmm. Why does the polar bear? Well, it's because it's the bear's genetics. Look, if you understand Darwin and you understand the origin of species, you understand we're all connected. So the role that sugars and fats and carbs play on other animals, that translates to us.
Right, especially when you're looking at mammals. You know, obviously, like reptiles and birds, probably not the same.
Not the same.
But if you look at other mammals and how their bodies work, you don't see fat cats. Mm-hmm. Or, unless
they feed them too much.
Your owner feeds you vegetarian.
How about Kaylee's dog Santo? So our friend Kaylee, her dog Santo, English Mastiff,
giant.
He's over 200 pounds. He's a tank.
Oh boy.
He's very lean. Mm-hmm. Eats raw diet, 9 pounds of meat a day. Why? Because a wolf would do about the same. Mm-hmm. The wolf would be like 15 pounds of meat a day. He's not fat. If you gave him filler, he would get fat. Oh yeah,
like if he was fed normal, like Purina, that's like 60% grain.
So yeah, and that's
he would be chubby, and that's one of the reasons why so many animals have so many problems. That when their owners are not feeding them appropriately for their species, like rabbits have a particular digestive system. They can't eat root vegetables. They can only eat a limited amount of greens. They, they have a very particular digestive system, and if you own rabbits, then you feed them that. If you own cats, then they're omnivores. They're mostly carnivores. They eat a little bit of grass and stuff like that to help with their digestion. But like 95% of their diet is carnivore. Dogs, same thing. And you have to treat yourself the same way. Like, what ancestrally would we have eaten? And that's really like eating within seasons, even like pre-agriculture, because a lot of societies, when they started farming, their bodies stopped being their traditional shape and size and function. We lost pounds of muscle when we stopped foraging and hunting.
And you can look this up in Europe. Studies of hunter-gatherers versus farmers in Europe. The farmers live to be maybe 40 years old. The hunter-gatherers are making it to 60. Yeah. They're way healthier. They're way denser. They're way stronger.
Hunting-gathering societies that still exist, mainly in Africa and some of the Polynesian islands, some parts of Asia.
Arctic.
The Arctic. People that eat traditional diets that are mostly hunting and foraging and not really doing a lot of agriculture, which means they're mostly eating meat, are living significantly longer, are significantly healthier, get sick, much less often. And as soon as you start adding agriculture into that, you start having issues.
Oh, yeah.
So
indigenous people here, almost immediately you give them sugar and diabetes.
Right.
Yeah.
And, our bodies require certain things, and we have been sold a lie by science. And it's because these big corporations are trying to make money, and they're funding studies that are, kiltered to one side or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that these are not studies with good scientific research behind them, but, as an advertising gimmick. And people are believing it, and the government is supporting it because those businesses are giving them money. That's why we have so many laws and so many regulations and all this. The food pyramid, we don't need to spend money on that. They hire people to make that,
right? And
it's all a lie. It's all a marketing gimmick.
It's all a lie.
None of that shit's true.
One of the reasons we do what we're doing, and we do with the Becoming Fully Human channel, it's not just about sexuality, modification, and farming. It's all of these things and more, because we're human. And we, you and I and everyone, haven't really ever been human. We have been gaslit and told that this is what it's good for us. This is what is healthy for us. And we believe it. We believe that it's acceptable to give children speed, to make them sit in a chair at, age 7 so they can learn something. No.
In a way that 90% of humanity doesn't learn that way.
No, they don't learn like that.
That's not, I don't remember anything that I learned in elementary school or middle school or 90% of high school. Because
private school education. She's very well educated, though.
Your brain does not retain information like that. Yeah, I have a really good vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a grammar Nazi. I know a good amount about indigenous history because that was something I really focused on and specialized in when I was in high school. But that is not how human brains retain information. We retain information by being active, by connecting your brain and your body, by repetition, oral tradition. This is how we've evolved to exist. And we are fighting that 110% by doing all this stuff that society is telling us is appropriate, and it's not appropriate, and it doesn't help anyone. It's making everyone sick and dumb, which is what they want. They want you to be stupid,
sick and dumb
so
and
just
dependent.
do what you're told.
We'll leave it with this. If you look out in your yard and you see certain grasses, certain plants, clouds, sun, what can you tell me about the weather just from looking in your yard for the next week? Do you need the Weather Channel to tell you what's happening? Do you know what that cloud is? Do you know what that plant is? You don't? Do you have a pronoun or a description of your sexual nature? Or do you have a DNA chart that tells you how much of a percentage of this you are so you can have a clam chowder recipe or something? Because if you have one of these things, but you don't know what those clouds are, what those plants are, what the land is, you just got screwed. We all did. It's time to fix it.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So.
Yeah, rant over.
Rant over. Good talk.